This show is so good. In episode 1 of Netflix new series Wednesday, we learned all about the dynamic between Wednesday and her family, the dynamic between Wednesday and the new school that she's at, the dynamic between Wednesday and her therapist, all of her new love interests, her roommate, and we learned a lot about the plot for this season. I'm super excited to keep diving into it. There are so many psychological concepts. Let's go.
How could you miss a dead body?
Because it wasn't there. No footprints, no blood, no sign of a struggle, nothing, nada. My search party looked all night.
Okay, so they can't find Rowan's body, even though she saw him get murdered in the last episode.
Sheriff, I find that question offensive.
Well, I don't care, because I got 3 other dead bodies in the morgue. Hikers just ripped apart in the woods.
The mayor said those were bear attacks, so you automatically assume that a Nevermore student is the murderer, even though there's no evidence that a crime was even committed.
Something really interesting is going on in that dynamic. They both are taking what it seems like polar opposites to the situation. The sheriff is saying it's probably somebody from Nevermore. Weems is saying it's probably not somebody from Evermore. And that's just a really interesting way that the human brain works, is the sheriff assumes that all of the outcasts, good or bad, are at Nevermore. And so only an outcast could engage in this type of behavior, like murdering somebody in the woods. So he's assuming that it's somebody from the school. And Weems is assuming that it's not, because she's thinking, I interact with these people every single day, and I know that they're not violent, malicious people. They aren't able to see eye to eye right now. And part of that probably has to do with the fact that it's a life and death situation. It's really complicated. And they both want to figure out what's going on, but one of them doesn't want to be to blame.
Help me understand why you would claim you witnessed a murder. Was it to gain attention?
Why should I bother telling you anything? You've already decided I'm lying. I know what I saw.
Your life's had a lot of upheaval recently. It's okay to be confused about things.
Don't try and lure me into one of your psychological traps.
No one is trying to trap you.
No one is trying to trap you. Sure, maybe that's true. No one's trying to trap her in this moment, but the therapist is acting like Wednesday's supposed to be falling for this psychological trap. She's trying to manipulate the things that she's saying to see if she can get Wednesday to agree with her.
Was it to gain attention?
Even just asking that right off the bat is so incredibly disrespectful. First of all, people need attention. They need connection. It's not something bad to need. But secondly, to outwardly say that it's for attention and to just directly ask that feels very uncompassionate. And then to go further and to say, it's okay, you know you're going through a lot right now. It's okay to be confused. Oh my God, if someone said that to me, I would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Take this as a lesson. You want a therapist that's going to be open to figuring out what's going on within you before assuming what it is that's going on within you.
It's your emotions.
Emotions are a gateway trait. They lead to feelings, which trigger tears. I don't do tears.
Tell me
I
how you're
don't
adjusting
do
to school.
tears.
Sartre said hell is other people. He was my first crush.
Wednesday, part of the reason your parents sent you to Nevermore is so that you could find your people. Become part of...
This therapist thinks that Wednesday isn't giving her any information. But Wednesday is giving this therapist information, just not the information that the therapist wants, but it's information that the therapist can be using. So Wednesday is saying that she had her first crush and one of the reasons why. And so as a therapist, I would have gone in more. Tell me more about that. What is so intriguing about this man and his philosophy, and how does it align with yours? In order for us to actually make the changes that we want to make with our clients, we have to really get to know who they are. Therapy is not about your parents or your professors coming with this box and saying, we need this person to fit into this box. And then the therapist works to try to get that person to fit into that box. That's not how therapy works. At least it's not how therapy should work. And I'm sorry if therapy has ever worked like that. Therapy should be where there's no box. There's just a person sitting with another person. And the person who's the client should be given and afforded an environment where they can slowly start to open up and possibly talk about things that no one else really gives them the time of day to talk about. And this is likely one of those situations where if this therapist was more open to hearing about the things that Wednesday actually liked and her philosophy on life, like Wednesday tells her, makes statements that are blunt and short and not what the therapist is looking for, but she is responding. And so the therapist should actually be running with those things and not trying to continuously change the direction of where Wednesday is going.
Have you considered your antisocial tendencies might be motivated by fear of rejection?
If you were to reject me right now, I would not be upset.
You can't get rid of me that easily. And look, you made it through an entire session without trying to escape. I'll take that as a win.
Take it as a win. I like that. That's one thing I do like about this therapist is she's very persistent and she's very direct, which I think is important for Wednesday. She matches Wednesday exactly where she's at. The thing is she shouldn't match her perfectly. She should go up just enough and be open enough to let Wednesday move closer, but she keeps matching Wednesday right up and right up. And that gives Wednesday an opportunity to say like one sentence, and then the therapist tries to push back and go somewhere else. But the therapist is doing a good job at kind of being a little snarky and saying like, oh, look, now you made it to a session without trying to escape. And so I feel like that might be something that actually intrigues Wednesday and that she likes, because Wednesday is very similar. And the last thing on this is when this therapist says, do you think that your antisocial tendencies are because of a fear of rejection? Again, that's an assumption that the therapist is just throwing out there instead of asking open-ended Socratic questions. And actually Wednesday's very intrigued by philosophy and philosophers. And so asking open-ended questions and diving more existentially might really make her open up more. It's not that Wednesday, at least from what I can see, has a fear of rejection when it comes to society. She rejects society in itself because it doesn't function the way that she prefers. I think the only thing that she feels in this moment is that she wants to belong somewhere but hasn't found somewhere. And wanting to belong somewhere and not wanting to be rejected, they're related, but they're not the same thing.
Guess you decided to stick around Jericho. But you see Dr. Kinbott too?
You should know I'm legally required.
Okay,
to be
Dr.
here.
Kinbott. Now we know her name.
Kind of crazy.
Everyone, including your father, believes I made it all up.
Not. Time to get in touch with my inner rebel. You know, for the record, I believe you.
Oh, see? Just the subtle way she turns and looks at him and wonders, why does he believe me? Why is he not scared of me? Wednesday is not giving up just yet on the fact that she truly believes that she saw Rowan get killed by this monster, this creature. Rightfully so. I mean, she doesn't know if she's right or wrong yet, but an interesting thing to point out is that most people, at least people who are fused with social norms or are fused with social groups, if people in their environment continue to tell them and tell them and tell them that what they believe to be true is not true and they have a desire to fit in, they will just start to conform. And that's just a survival mechanism that we have psychologically built into our human psychology. With Wednesday, she doesn't have a desire to be a part of a group. She doesn't have a desire to be a part of society. And so she isn't saying, oh, well, I should just let this go. She has an ability to say, I really think that there's something going on here, and I'm not going to be persuaded towards thinking something different.
That excuse might have placated the sheriff, but you can't fool me. You had a psychic vision, didn't you? I realized you might be having them when we passed by the accident and you knew that poor farmer had broken his neck. Your mother started having visions around your age. They were notoriously unreliable and dangerous.
And notoriously unreliable.
Square stance, low the air like this, yellow side out, 3 fingers, pull back, and let it fly. Any questions?
When's the last time you saw your roommate, Rowan?
Oh, you mean the one that was killed by a monster? The Harvest Festival.
The amount of people that are just completely dismissing any sort of her reality is wild. Any person, again, that had a desire to truly connect with people, grow a social norm group, would be really taken back by this behavior. But we can take 2 things into consideration. The first thing to take into consideration when it comes to Wednesday and what's happening with everybody rejecting her beliefs is, one, she's super used to rejection because society has rejected her and her family in general for a really long time. Society in itself rejects all the people that go to Nevermore. The second thing for us to consider is that it's not only important that Wednesday doesn't want to be a part of a social group, and maybe the other side of the coin, that Wednesday trusts herself. Not everybody that doesn't want to be part of a social norm trusts themselves. She's able to hold that sense of core, and she's able to have this belief where until I know that what I think to be true isn't true, I'm going to stay with this belief. But right now, no one's given her enough of a reason to change her mind.
Now I'm going to have to find new evidence myself, since you're the one who lost our only lead.
I see you finally made a friend. Even if it is a plant.
I go for quality over quantity.
There's an open spot next to me. If you can stand sitting that close to an elitist snob.
He can match her. It seems like she can build more of a bond with people that like really try to match her energy, but don't take it too far. Like the therapist has started to take it too far a little bit, but everyone else, she seems to just kind of be like, this is interesting. People are coming back at me. And I think the thing that she really enjoys about seeing people be sarcastic or getting even or whatever it is that she actually starts to see herself outside of herself, which is something that's really important for human beings.
Who can tell us the name of this beauty?
Dendrophylax lindenii.
Perhaps you could identify the ghost orchid's greatest qualities.
Resilience and adaptability.
Resilience and adaptability. Wednesday absolutely has resilience and adaptability. The thing is, she has resilience because she's been put up against so many societal pushbacks and interpersonal pushbacks in this episode and probably in her entire lifetime, but also adaptability. And this is something that I don't quite think she grasps what adaptability is. Adaptability is actually allowing yourself to transform and to change. And in the last episode, I really talked about how Wednesday lives a lot of her life transactionally instead of transformationally. It's a you do for me, I'll do for you, a tit for tat, a task for an outcome. It's far less about I'm interested in changing this part of my life or this part of my character, and I'm hoping that you can help me do that, and or I'd like to help you change this part of yourself or your character, and I don't necessarily need anything in return. And that's important for us to realize that she's saying adaptability, people can survive in hostile environments, but there's a difference. You can survive, but can you thrive? Right now, she's very much, again, in that survival part of her brain, and the frontal part of her brain is more so allowing her to deal with that resilience, but she just might break down if she starts to really feel her emotions. And we'll see if that happens in the season.
You still believe there's a creature out there, don't you?
Ran into your shrink. She was kind of tight-lipped about your progress.
Yeah, it's called
As she should be.
confidentiality.
How about a little father-son confidentiality? What are you two yakking about?
Something clearly happened to Tyler's mom. I don't know what it is yet. Maybe you do. Maybe we don't find out in the season.
We talk about mom.
But there is something really interesting going on here. And it really looks to me like grief and loss, a loss of connection to his own emotions. And I'm talking about the father here, the sheriff. When something happens to lose the one that you love, this could be divorce, this could be actual loss of life, this could be physical or emotional separation, whatever it is. And you experience grief and a shift in your physiology, your psychology, and your environment as a result of this separation or loss. And then you don't process it. You start to get rid of other emotions as well. If you don't want to feel the anger or the grief or the loss or the jealousy or the overwhelm or the isolation or the abandonment, it also tends to make us unable to feel the joy and the connection and the happiness and the freedom and the hopefulness. And we need to address all of the emotions in order to be able to feel a full range of emotion. And we need to feel emotion to some degree in order to really connect with people in a compassionate, empathetic way, which is the ultimate goal. It's not always achievable for everyone because everybody lives different lives, but that's the ultimate goal, especially in parent-child relationships. You can see here that Tyler wasn't actually saying, oh man, I really wish that we could hang out. There was so much sarcasm in his voice, like, oh no, you're leaving, this never happens. He's implying this always happens. You've been emotionally distant. I really need you as a father. And also, when his father says, how about some father-son confidentiality? He's basically saying, I want you to tell me everything about your life, but why would Tyler tell him everything about his life when he just leaves in every moment that he feels uncomfortable in the first place? Because it's likely that what Tyler has to say isn't going to make his father comfortable.
I know I'm stubborn, single-minded, and obsessive. But those are all traits of great writers.
Are you going to open up?
When Rowan showed me this, it confirmed my greatest fear.
What is your greatest fear?
That I'm going to be responsible for something terrible. Not good terrible like Ivan. That's why I need to find out the truth. Breathe a word of this to anyone and I will end you.
She's such a funny character. I really love her a lot. People have many different ways of setting boundaries, and there's so many different types of boundaries. I'm going to break them down really quickly for you because this whole episode isn't about boundaries. Basically, there's categories of 3 different types of boundaries. There's rigid, semi-permeable, and loose. You don't want boundaries that are too loose because then you tend to lose the ability to really take care of yourself. You don't want boundaries that are too rigid because then you're not really letting anybody else in, and you may be engaging in acts that are just far too selfish. You want to find somewhere in the middle, semi-permeable, where you get to decide what things come in, what things don't, what you allow, how you act, and so on. And there's reasons behind that to keep yourself and everyone else around you safe. Wednesday seems to have very rigid boundaries. She really doesn't let anybody in. The thing is when she does let somebody in, she does have a tendency to really go back to that rigidity, but she doesn't do it in a way where it's communicated very well. She doesn't do it in the, expressing her emotions, the I feel and then statements. So at this moment, I feel very vulnerable, and and so I would appreciate if you didn't talk to anybody about this. Instead, she just threatens Thing and says what it is that she says.
Breathe a word of this to anyone and I will end you.
She can feel. She has feelings, but she's very afraid of feeling them, and that makes sense. Again, like I said earlier, I don't think she's afraid of rejection. If anything, I think she has been rejecting a part of herself already, and she's actually afraid of the lack of rejecting that part of herself. And I think she's also afraid of the opposite of rejection when it comes to the people in her environment. She wants them to be distant. She doesn't want them to be close to her. And so this is going to be really interesting to see how it evolves.
I don't usually find students in here looking for actual books. Is there something I can help you find?
Have you seen this before? It's a watermark from a book I'm looking for.
She just
I
shows
think
her
it's
right
the symbol to an
away.
old student society. The nightshades.
Like the deadly
She
flower.
is building trust.
Color me intrigued.
I was told they disbanded years ago.
Any idea why?
Now that I think about it a little more, I mean, maybe she is starting to build some trust, but I think it also is that she's just trying to complete this transaction. Like, I'm going to show you this so that you can help me. That might be what's going on.
I'm sorry about Rowan. I know you guys used to be close.
Since when did you give a damn about Rowan?
You were the one who was afraid he would do something to Wednesday. Isn't that why you've been following her around like an eager-eyed puppy? Or is there something more?
Ooh, is that some envy?
Seriously, what do you see in her? You suddenly have a thing for tragic goth girls with funeral parlor
No,
fashion
that's
sense?
Maybe it's
jealousy.
because she hasn't tried to manipulate me.
You were good together, Xavier.
Were we? Is that just how you wanted me to feel?
Oh.
Trust me, Wednesday Addams is not the girl of your dreams. She's the stuff of your nightmares.
See, what Bianca thinks about Wednesday isn't accurate. When Bianca says to Xavier,
Because she thinks she's better than everyone else.
that's not true. If Wednesday really had the ego where she felt like she was better than everyone else, then she wouldn't only engage in making people upset with her because of something that she does, whether she does it better, whether she's smarter and she says that she knows the answer in class, whether she gets the attention of some boy, and so on. For Wednesday, she only engages in these acts where she uses her intelligence and she uses her abilities to do something to another person or to make something happen if it's transactional. If someone's done something to her, or if she needs to do something in order to serve a transaction for herself to begin with. Now, Bianca, on the other hand, looking at this jealousy aspect that she has going on, jealousy also often stems from this feeling of not being good enough. And it's so interesting that Bianca says she acts like she's better than everyone else, when in turn what's really going on is Bianca actually just feels like Wednesday's better than her. Wednesday, yes, of course, is taunting her, but that's because Bianca is taunting Wednesday, and Wednesday is very transactional. So we need to keep paying attention here. Also, when Bianca says to Xavier,
You used to love my killer instinct.
and then he just kind of stares, it's interesting because I don't know if Xavier has feelings for Wednesday or not, but Xavier clearly seems to have a leaning towards partners that do have this type of snarkiness, this snappiness, this heightened sense of place in society, whether they want to be in it like Bianca or they don't want to be in it like Wednesday. The way that I take that is that Bianca and Wednesday might actually make really good friends in the future, and that happens all the time. People that could be the best of friends actually become the worst enemies because they're matched up with themselves. And as much as Wednesday likes people to show a little bit of her tendencies so that she can see herself outside of herself, she doesn't want to come in competition with just herself because it's really a waste of her time. And so she can kind of just do this transactional relationship with Bianca. But on the other end, Bianca cannot handle the fact that she is not the best. And so she keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. I have a feeling this is going to explode at some point.
What do we have here? The runt of the litter.
For the record, I don't believe I'm better than everyone else. Just that I'm better than you.
Oh! And the reason that Wednesday thinks she's better than Bianca is because Bianca can't handle her emotions, and Wednesday thinks that it's beneficial to be able to handle them, and it is. They held it together to run up. They're cute.
Admit it, you
That's
kinda got
weird.
to the whole spirit thing.
She's not into the whole spirit thing. She's just happy to
You
beat
didn't tell me
her.
it was a dark, vengeful spirit.
What are you doing down here?
The symbol.
Hiding. People keep randomly smiling at me out there. It's unsettling.
It's called having your moment.
The last time Ophelia Hall won the Poe Cup, your mother captained the team. Maybe you two are more alike than you think.
Another thing for us to note, Wednesday saying people keep randomly smiling at me, it's unsettling. There's a part in our brain that recognizes faces. If we aren't comfortable with social interaction, we can become very overwhelmed. This happens often with people who are neurodivergent. And honestly, there's a part of me where it's like, do I want to say neurodivergent? It's like every single person's actually different. And then you're just categorizing a certain group of people and saying that these are the people that are different from these are the people. Regardless, I'm going to use the term. People that are neurodivergent tend to have their brains working in a way where social interaction, facial expressions, eye contact, these things are far more difficult to do than the average person, than the neurotypical person. And so this can, obviously Wednesday's a character. There could be so many different things that are going on in terms of the way that her brain functions. It could be a result of the things that she experienced when in her childhood, the things that she experiences now in the society that she lives in. And it could also be the way that her brain works. Or she could just really not like people, just generally not like people. It could be any of those things. This is kind of the thing too, when there's all those tips to pay attention to, 5 tips, 5 signs you have ADHD or whatever. It's so different. Even just this statement, I don't like when people randomly smile at me, which probably goes along with eye contact and engaging with people in general. That could be a sign of so many different things. It could also be a sign of absolutely nothing. Let me know your questions below. Let me know how you think I'm doing. Is there anything that you want me to touch on that I haven't touched on in the first 2 episodes yet in terms of dynamics between individuals, what's going on in this society, any psychological concepts that you think I should have already mentioned because you've seen something and I haven't mentioned it? Let me know and I'll try to mention it in the next couple episodes. We're going to be doing this the entire season. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Hit that like button if you liked this video and made it this far. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Get that notification so that you can watch this as soon as you can. They're coming out on Wednesdays. So make this part of your Wednesday evening or your Wednesday morning, your Wednesday afternoon, whatever it is that you'd like. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Dr. Courtney, known as the Truth Doctor. And as always, every single time you see the end of my videos, I want to remind you that I'm happy that you exist. Life is not easy at all. And the fact that you're doing this every single day and taking the time to learn about your own mind through an entertainment channel such as this, I appreciate it. Thank you for everything that you do. See you next Wednesday.